Welcome to Under the Microscope, a stage for materials and nanoscience. This podcast is powered by the Science Talk team. Our goal is to provide a stage where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, with every episode, we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials or nanoscience. In addition to featuring on this podcast, every guest gets the keys to the Real Scientist Nano Twitter account for an entire week. Check it out at realsci_nano. All right, on to today's episode. Enjoy! Hi everyone, my name is Pranoti. I'm your host of Under the Microscope podcast, or podcast if you're watching on YouTube. And today we have with us a veteran of Under the Microscope, Antonija Grubisic-Cabo. I'm sure I butchered the name, of course. Antonija is a Tenure Track Assistant Professor at the University of Groningen. She's written as Groningen in the Netherlands. And the last time we spoke with Antonija, she was a postdoc, I think, at the KTH in Sweden, which is yet another renowned university. But yeah, welcome, Antonija. It's so lovely to have you again on Under the Microscope. How are you?
I'm good, and thanks for having me again.
Last time we spoke, you were in Sweden, and now you are in the Netherlands. What made you change to another country within EU, of course?
Well, there is a part of, you're offered an offer you cannot refuse, which in this case was a tenure track position. So last time we spoke, I was in Sweden, in Stockholm, very lovely place, although not too much sightseeing during COVID because my whole postdoc in Sweden was actually during COVID. But then I was offered a tenure track position here in the Netherlands. It's a very nice place with nice colleagues and really on a topic I wanted to work on. So obviously I said yes.
That makes sense, totally. Tenure track, congratulations. Dude, this is a big thing. This is a big thing. Congratulations. Antonija, what kind of research are you doing nowadays in Groningen? Written as Groningen. What are you doing? Tell me.
So it's sort of a continuation and also a combination of things I've been doing during my PhD and postdoc time. So I still work on 2D materials, which is what we spoke about some 2 years ago. But now I also moved working with other kinds of materials that we call topological insulator, very fancy materials. And I'm mostly looking into their properties out of equilibrium. So I still study their electronic properties. So if you think of when we talk about electronic materials, we say we have insulators, metals, semiconductors. That's stuff I study. But now I also study these properties when we poke them with laser lights and just force material to be completely different.
Aha. Okay. That sounds really cool. And you also mentioned the topological insulators. So like 1 or 2 weeks on, or just before your week on Real Scientist Nano, we have a researcher, a theoretical physicist who is also working on topological insulators, and his name is Antonija, and he explained the topological insulators to me and also to our followers in such simple. I've never understood topological insulators at such depth. He's a theoretical person. I can put you two in touch because he's doing like theoretical work. He's also based in the Netherlands. Antonija, based in Netherlands. I don't remember which university, but yeah. That sounds so. What you do now, basically, you're still working with 2D materials, and you're shooting laser at the materials.
Yeah, so you can use very strong lights to actually change properties of materials. So in some cases, you can turn, let's say, semiconductor to metal just by exciting carriers. But in other cases, if you hit the wavelength really, really well, you can even just turn material into a completely different phase. So maybe something that is metastable. So the phase exists, but it's not the one that you would expect at room temperature and in daily conditions. But we can also look at creating completely new phases, but on like super, super fast scales. So we're talking things like femtoseconds. So like 10 to the minus 15 seconds. You can create a phase that doesn't really exist in, let's say, in the material in regular conditions. And it can be completely, like when it comes to physics, completely different.
But why do you do that? Why do we need why? I mean, other than the fun part of it, I'm sure there is a reason behind it. Why do you do this?
So I always like to say that I am here for the fun part. So I'm really interested in new physics. One thing is that you can actually find phases that don't exist in reality. But even though it's such a short scale, it can be something you could apply. So if we are talking, let's say, about topological materials, topological insulators are just one kind of these very special materials. And you can even change like topological phases. So I have a topological material of type 1, let's say. I shoot a laser light and I turn it in type 2. Or if you think of your regular topological insulator, you could try and use laser light to open and close what we call a gap. So you could try and use it for a topological transistor, but you use very fast light for switching. And that means you can also have very, very fast devices.
Very fast devices. That means my computer and my phone can get faster, right?
Can get faster, but the reason why we're super interested in topological materials is that your phone and computer wouldn't overheat. And that's one of the really, really nice advantages.
That would be awesome. That would be so awesome if, oh my God, yes. Then that will also improve the battery life, right? At the end.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of batteries basically drained. Our switches, the transistors are not so efficient, so we do lose fair amount of energy, which is just heat. If you use less energy to even do switching, by default, your battery life is better because, you don't drain it as much.
Oh, that sounds so cool. So before we move on, I have to ask you this. Which is your favorite material?
Well,
right now.
Today, I'm still a big fan of graphene. It's like something I grew up with, but let's say tungsten disulfide. Tungsten disulfide is lovely. You can do many fun things with it.
Okay, what does tungsten disulfide have that graphene doesn't have?
So we're still talking about 2D materials. Tungsten disulfide has what we call a band gap. So that's the part that you would use for switching. It's a semiconductor. But you can also use it for this really, really cool thing called spin and valleytronics. So these materials are hexagonal, and you can imagine that like in corners of hexagon, you have like every second corner is the same. So like neighbors are completely different. And each of these neighbors has opposite spin. So if I use light of particular helicity, so circular left and right, I can really select one value, one of these points. I can say, oh, I want to see what happens with spin up. I change the direction of my light and I say, oh, what happens to spin down? And that's quite neat and not really easy to do in graphene.
That is so cool, of course, because with graphene, each hexagon has the carbon atom, so they have the same spin. Ooh, that sounds...
So in the case of graphene, you always get like all of these corners, they all look the same, but it's so much fun to see like, oh, I just use lights and out of a sudden I have electrons which just like spin up and electrons which spin down are just chilling. And it's like a really cool, let's say, optical selection rule, but it's very much fun when it comes to like looking at physics. And again, you can use it like pitch can be, well, we can use this for new kinds of, let's say, data storage. If you select like one particular spin or looking into computation with just spin, because again, spins also dissipate less. So your devices would heat less.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was completely focusing on the fun part of the physics and not so much the application. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that also makes. Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. That is so cool. I want to visit your lab and see this happen. I mean, not see this happen, but witness this happen. Let's talk about this when we stop recording. That would be awesome. Okay. So now, Antonija, so last time we spoke, you were in Sweden, and I remember you started your science journey in Croatia. Really a traveling scientist you are, I have to say. Please tell us, how does one become a tenure track professor in the Netherlands? How tell me about your journey.
So I will say what a lot of people also say is that you do have to be lucky. In this case, I'm hired on something that is called a sector plan position, which basically means that the Dutch government decided that they have particular scientific fields of interest that they want to strengthen in the country. And my field is actually one of them, which is advanced materials. Also just things out of equilibrium done to advanced materials.
Okay.
But you also have to make, let's say, some strategic choices. So in this case, you do have to have a profile that fits. I started my master's in a completely different field. So I worked on something called quasi-zero dimensional magnets, which is like we're going now even lower than 2D. Basically materials where you have magnetic order, but in just isolated locations. So they still create a pattern, but it's just isolated, let's say, dots. And that's something I really, really enjoyed. But when it came to a PhD, there were no positions available in Croatia at that time. And I was recommended this very, very cool group in Denmark. And I was put in contact with a professor. He's called Philip Hoffman. He's great. He actually authored a few books on solid state physics and surface science. So some of our listeners or viewers might have used this book. But when I met him and his group, I really liked the atmosphere of the place. I quite liked the equipment. When you work with surface science, there's a lot of shiny, metallic, giant pieces of equipment, and it's always fun. And the topic was very interesting. So that's I started working on graphene, and it's a cool material. And at that time, I was doing something called angle result photoemission spectroscopy. Very long name, basically means you shoot light, in our case, mostly from a synchrotron. You kick electrons out. Everybody knows the photoelectric effect. It's basically that. But we have specifically designed equipment that captures these electrons, keeps all the information about them, and we get very, very pretty pictures of electronic bands. So things that tell you if material is a topological insulator, semiconductor, and so on, we directly get pictures of that. So I work with 2D materials and this technique, and that's also when I started doing this time result ARPIS. So ARPIS version, which is shooting laser and changing material, like dynamic changes. And after that, I decided I want to learn a bit more about something that is not ARPIS, which was my main technique, time result ARPIS. So I went to Australia, where I was working in a low temperature scanning tunneling microscopy lab. So I went for looking at electrons to looking at pictures of atoms with a fancy microscope.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun.
So wait, let me just recap. So from Croatia to Denmark, and now we are in Australia.
And now we're in Australia, yeah. So it's sort of like, you start, let's say, Central Europe-ish, and then you go north, very much south. And then you're going to go north and then less north. But yeah, in Australia, I worked a bit with STM, and it gives you, let's say, you learn more techniques. You also see what you like better. And it was a great time. I worked with very nice people, and Melbourne I still claim it's the nicest city in all of Australia for living. It's great. But then I decided that the thing I like best is this time result ARPIS. So I moved for my second postdoc in Sweden right before COVID hit. But of course, we were in Sweden, so we were still, lab work was deemed essential. So we're still working in a lab. So during my postdoctoral stay there, I basically helped build a lab. And that's something that it was very helpful when I was applying for a position later, because I could say, well, I do have experience with moving a building, like from one end of the city to another, setting up a lab. So that experience was really helpful. And of course, I again worked with time result ARPIS, which is this dynamic thing that they were looking for here in the Netherlands.
Okay. So we started in Croatia, then we went to Denmark, then we went to Australia, then we came back to Sweden, and now we are in Netherlands.
And now we're in Netherlands.
For now. I'm curious where you will be the next time you are under the microscope. I mean, you have a tenure track position, so.
I have tenure track position, yeah. So if I'm tenured in, let's say, approximately 4 years, then I might still be in the Netherlands next time we talk.
True. Or you go on sabbatical in some other country, or
I'll be somewhere on sabbatical. That's a good idea.
that could also work. Yeah, I remember last time we spoke, you were telling me about the fact that you are moving equipment. I think that was around the time when you featured on Under the Microscope. I remember that. That is so much fun. That is so much fun.
I will say I don't recommend moving labs during COVID or any kind of pandemic. That's not so much fun, but it worked out in the end, and I was with a good team. So I was teamed with one of my very good friends. We also did PhD together. He's now permanent researcher at KDH. So two of us were we were designated joint moving teams. So I had very good company, even though, pandemic time, interesting years.
Yeah, interesting years indeed. Yes, definitely.
When we come back, right after this short break, the downsides of being a traveling scientist. As you heard, Antonija moved from Croatia to Denmark to Australia to Sweden and now in the Netherlands. It sounds very glamorous and attractive, right? But well, there are downsides to being a traveling scientist as well. Antonija will share some of those downsides with us right after this short break. Hey, if you're enjoying listening to this episode, do check out the previous time Antonija was on Under the Microscope. The links are in the show notes. So those are episode number 85 and 86. 85 is the short one and the 86 is the long episode. This was back in 2020 when Antonija was a postdoc at the KDH, Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden. Do check those episodes out. Links are in the show notes. And hey, if you want to know more about the topological insulators, do check out another episode if you're interested in topological insulators. This one featuring Antonio Manesco, who spoke about simulating the future of quantum materials, and he also spoke about the theoretical aspects of 2D materials and also topological insulators. So yeah, do check those 2 episodes out, or 3 episodes out. All right, on to today's episode.
Before we move on, I do want to ask you this, Antonija. It sounds very glamorous, when you summarize, I have lived in 2 different continents and I have been in different labs, and leaving the pandemic out of it, of course. It sounds really glamorous and attractive, but I'm sure it wasn't. Give me one downside of being a traveling scientist.
Ooh. One
Yeah, I like to put my guests on the spot.
I mean, it sounds glamorous, but you do have to think that you're moving a lot. You have to deal with paperwork, figure out bank every time you move, find an apartment, maybe visas. Those are always fun, completely different from one place to another.
Mm-hmm.
You could end up very far from your friends, family. I mean, you also gain friends from all over the world. It's great for, if you want to visit them, but I have very good friends, and some are in completely different parts of the world, so you don't even get to see them that much. And even just, doing a Zoom call is a pain because time zones. Yeah, it sounds glamorous, but it's also, there's a part of having to unpack very often, which is not so fun. Trying to settle and saying, goodbye to friends every few years. That part is definitely less fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, let's go back into the scientist side of you, Antonija. So this question I'm going to ask again. If you have to pick one research project that you're most proud of, or the most fun or quirky one, can you pick one today? Yeah, we are not playing favorites. Well, we are kind of playing favorites here. Can you pick one research project and explain it to us in the section we call In Other Words? And the last time you spoke with us about the 2D materials and the bits, the spin and the valley, exactly what you referred to, what you're doing now. So that was your favorite project the last time you were on Under the Microscope. For anyone who wants more details, I'll put the links to the past episodes in the show notes. They can go into it. But today, tell me, what is that one research project that is like, oh my God, that was so cool?
So while I still love the one you referred to, my new favorite is, so we have a recent publication on something we call KISS method. It's a week long of brainstorming to come up with the English word on K that fits the method. But basically, while I was in Sweden, I started with a colleague of mine. We came up with this way of making 2D materials, but completely in ultra high vacuum, which is a surface scientist's must-have thing. So usually when you make 2D materials, people use sticky tape, right? And then we get nicest quality materials, but they're usually very small. And for surface science, that's a problem. We need much larger materials. We need the whole surface to be uniform, nice, clean. And like a few years ago, there was this work where people used gold as a sticky tape. So they sort of put it on a polymer, they peel things off. Yeah, it's really cool. But again,
wait, they used gold like a sticky tape?
Yeah, they use gold to sort of, you take your layered material, you take gold, and then your layered material peels off on top of your gold.
This is in vacuum, right? This is not happening.
No, this is in air or a glove box. So it was actually something made for, large flakes for devices, and then they would just remove all of this gold away and so on. And, we do surface science. I do electronic structure. You have like these electrons all flying out. We actually like having gold as a substrate. So what my friend said, like, well, we have gold here, a single crystal of gold. How about we just, make it clean and, do our surface science thing, make clean gold, clean layered crystal, piece them together, and we see what happens. And it was a brilliant summer project. Everybody was on holidays, and we were in the lab. Nobody can stop you and tell you it's a terrible idea to take single crystal of gold. And we did it, and it worked from first. And I'm also happy to report no single crystals were harmed in this process.
I mean, if they're harmed, I'm happy to take them off your table. I mean, they're not useful anymore, right? The single gold crystals damaged, I must say. I'm taking to take them off your hands so that you can buy new ones and destroy them. Sorry, go on.
So we got this fairly large flake of tungsten diselenide. We could do ARPAS measurements, which is, we did regular one, not the fancy versions with microscopic beam. And but of course, for publication, you need a bit more evidence. So this was right when I was leaving from KTH to Groningen. So it's also my first project from Groningen coming out. So my friend and I, his name is Maciej Dędzyk. He's really, really great. We gathered what one of the colleagues called International Team of Scientific Besties.
Oh, I love that.
So we applied for synchrotron time, and we got 10 days on what I call, back home. So place where Mac and I did PhD. And together with us, we had another colleague from PhD who flew all the way from Canada, and a person who did postdoc who flew from the UK. And we worked with one of our old colleagues there. And in 10 days, we worked like crazy doing this KISS exfoliation on so many different materials. We also tried not only gold, but silver and germanium. And we got a really, really nice publication. But it was a really fun project. It's let's just take this super duper fancy crystal of gold, smush things together, see if it works. And then we got to work with our very, very good friends. So it was also like a family reunion. It was really cool.
And it worked, right? Scientifically, what you wanted to do, that worked. You could exfoliate with the KISS method.
Yeah, we could exfoliate. We got flakes that were, some are smaller than the others, depending how good you are in alignment and things. So some are, let's say, 50, 100 microns. We had some that are like a millimeter in size, which is just awesome.
That is heaven for a nanoscientist. That is like, okay, my job here is done. I can retire now. Wow.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And like, also a really nice part is that other people also like are using it now. So actually, a group in Denmark has now a paper under review on completely different class of materials. So we did a lot of transition metal like alkogenite, tungsten disulfide included.
Of course.
Also air sensitive ones. That was like the big goal because, well, you don't care material is air sensitive if it never leaves vacuum. So all good. But yeah, they use it on a completely different type of material, one of these 2D magnets. And yeah, it's really, really cool. So it's something also that I hope is going to be useful to, other, at least surface scientists. But we're also using it here in Groningen, and like guys at KDH use it. It's also used in UBC, so it's quite neat.
Oh, that is so cool. And I love the part of international team of scientific besties or science besties. I love that.
I wish I could take credit for that, but it was one of the colleagues from this experimental time. So she came up with the name, and I really loved it. So I just had to steal it.
It's the name now. That's the name. That's just how it is. That's the name. We are going with it.
It's important to have your scientific besties. So
yeah, it is very, very important, really. Totally. Yes, absolutely. Oh my God. Please tell me you have tons of pictures and tons of more science, like going into the details of the surface science. How did it with gold and silver and germanium, and how it was different for the different ones? What was the best combination and all of that? Please tell me you're gonna tell all the followers of Real Scientist Nano about all of this.
And we do have what we call dream team picture. Unfortunately, one team member was missing. He had COVID, but like the core dream team is in a picture. So
I mean, that's what
I love it. So
I mean, we that's what we have Photoshop for, right? To add people, just a floating head somewhere in the picture.
Exactly.
Oh, that sounds really cool. So, Antonia, it's very clear to me. It was clear to me the first time we spoke as well, which was a few years ago, that you love the research aspect of being a scientist, and I can see and feel it when you talk about the science, that you love the research aspect of being a scientist. But what else do you like about being a scientist?
Well, I think it's also maybe obvious after a previous answer. It's my nice colleagues. You get to meet very, very, different people from all over the world. The team that went to Denmark, like a lot of us actually worked in Denmark, but we had a person from, I'm from Croatia, one of the colleagues we had 2 Italians, a person from Poland, US. So it's sort of all over the place, but we do have a lot of things in common. And also just hearing what I love hearing what people work on. So it's still related to science, but you get to meet all of these like brilliant people with cool ideas that it's quite nice.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, totally. I mean, it was quite evident from your previous answer. You're right. And I have to say, I do miss that from my past life as a scientist. I truly miss that. So.
I would imagine you still meet, at least virtually, meet a lot of people for Under the Microscope. With I enjoy like following what people tweet and also hearing what they work on, because in some cases it's super different from my field. I'm in surface science, but then we have this nano part going on together, but sometimes like even the words we use for the same thing are completely different. So just like trying to figure out the vocabulary, it's okay, it's a bit of a work, but it can be like really, really fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It indeed is a lot of fun. I mean, Antonia, it's great that, again, congratulations on getting the tenure track position. This is really, really great. But if you had 3 wishes to improve your experience as a scientist or your research experience, what would you ask for? And I have your answers, from a few years ago, but I will tell you those answers after you tell me your 3 wishes today in 2023. What are your 3 wishes to improve your research experience? And as last time, not promising anything new.
So I think one of the wishes from last time did come true, and one will repeat again. But in this case, I would say my first wish is actually to do more research. Once you move from, being a postdoc or a PhD working in the lab, like very often into an assistant professor position, there's a lot of new responsibilities, including, for example, teaching. Teaching is actually a lot of fun. It can be very rewarding, and I had some really nice students. Fortunately, it doesn't always work out. But there's also, a lot of paperwork you have to figure out, especially when you move to, I've never lived in or worked in the Netherlands before. So just trying to figure out the paperwork part. You lose decent amount of time for research. So I miss some of the time. I still get to go and do experiments with my students, which is great, and help them with measurements and analysis. I do wish I had, more time to actually focus on science, reading papers, to just, to have a whole week just reading papers. And if I'm writing a grant, just I can focus for 3 days reading papers, and then I can write my thing and just think of science without all the other things popping up on the side. The second one would be, and I think this was maybe also second wish last time, that we're better with doing open science with less obstacles. I do have to say, University of Groningen is really, really good with open science. We even have open science, let's say a division, people who work on it, helping to improve it, even also spread to open education, which is really cool. But there's still these random obstacles you encounter. So for example, the paper we were planning to, the KISS paper, it turned out that, while our university has a deal with a publisher, it doesn't have a deal for that particular type of journal. And then it's either, I'm cashing out a few $1,000s, but then it turned out that, KDH has a fully free publishing agreement. And then just trying to coordinate is me and my Matt and I were just okay, I've prepared everything, but now you need to register. You got a link and you just have to click a button. I feel like it should be simpler. And I think we're the lucky ones. We have an agreement and different levels of agreement, let's say. But sometimes I see that, for example, you have much better agreements in chemistry, biomedical fields. Some of the journals that we traditionally publish in are not necessarily, really covered. And I do think these things are expensive. So I'm in the Netherlands. We are even, we can put some of the funding money just dedicated for open access, but that's not a thing in every country. So, well, it's a nice thing. It still requires to make it simpler and actually more accessible.
Yeah, and, absolutely. Yeah, third wish, please.
The wish is that people actually may know a bit better what we're actually doing. It's really funny, you're a physicist and everybody's okay, you're Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, or, you do experiments for Leonard or something. It's well, most of us are slightly more adept at, human skills. There is also a part that, yes, I do research, and being in the lab is a big part of my work, but I also do teaching, grant proposals, and it's actually still part of the science, the grant proposals and paper writing. Sometimes people are but you're not in the lab all the time. It's well, I get data, but this data has to be shown to people. And sometimes people are oh, you're professors. Oh, so you just teach. And you're no, I teach and we wear a lot of hats in our responsibility, as professors. It's sometimes I think way too many. It's ridiculous how many things you get to do, but I do feel that people don't really know all the things that are involved. Research is great, yes, but there's these things also actually count as research, papers, grants. Yes, I'm also teaching, and no, teaching is not the only thing I do. So I do think it would be nice if people also think often we're in these ivory towers and we never see people outside of university, and just most of us are just regular people. We do leave academic buildings once in a while when job allows us and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's important as well, because people don't really know what professors do. Also, because in different cultures, professors do different things, or they're associated with different uh, topics. So, for anyone who is listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever, please watch the video on YouTube, because Antonia is wearing a wonderful dress which has bats and skulls and stars and planets and trees and all of that, and an amazing background as well. And so she's not in the lab right now. She is not. She's also not in her virtual background right now. Even if she wants to be there, can you tell me why you're wearing such a nice, fun dress with bats? Is it a Batman vibe? What's happening today?
Oh, I really liked the dress. So I also I feel like, I should. We also often imagine professors dress in a very particular way, and I like to dress to express also things I like. So, I like metal music. So sometimes you'll see me in funny dresses with bats. And but also today we have our semester started recently, and we have an intro day for students to explain them different, let's say, tracks or streams within physics. So I'll be co-presenting nanophysics today. So I thought, I should dress up.
Yeah, absolutely. You go, Antonia. Absolutely. That is so great. This is just to show people that the human side of our scientist, human side of Antonia. Okay, just to summarize your wishes, you would like more time for research, you would like open science with less obstacles, and people to understand the job as a scientist or as a professor better, like what all different hats you have to wear. So those are Antonia's wishes in 2023, September or October 2023. And the last time Antonia was on the podcast, as promised, her three wishes were blue sky research to be a bit more prioritized. I think that's what by that you meant a little more,
like really basic research.
Exactly.
We don't have to pitch every time we'll solve, all the energy problems on the planet and stuff like that.
Exactly. Basic research being extremely important, and a recognition for the importance of the basic research, fundamental research.
Yeah, fundamental research, because we have no idea what some of these things that we work on will be used in a few years. Like everybody wanted to make graphene in a transistor. It's not a very good transistor, but there's ways to make one. But it's, for example, an excellent heat sink, or very good. It can be in touch screens. So it's completely like different things we didn't even think of.
Absolutely. So that was your first wish. The second wish was permanent position, which is something that has happened. Yay! Yes. See, if you make the wishes, if you vocalize your wishes, then they do come true on Under the Microscope.
Occasionally.
And the third wish was about the open source publications, and using the service like Archive, like preprint service like Archive and stuff. So those were your wishes.
I'm still into the third one still. So
just so you know, last time we spoke was in 2020, and I just checked the date, and it was around this week, around this time, at the end of September 2020 is when we recorded your previous podcast episode. So it's 3 years.
Now I'm wondering if it's even the same week I'm going to be tweeting.
Probably, yeah. I'm gonna double check that for you. That is so cool. That is so cool. So, Antonia, as expected by me, this has been wonderful. Before I let you go, you're also gonna tweet from the Real Scientist Nano Twitter account, or X account, or whatever the fuck it is called now, the website.
We still call it Twitter, right? It just says X, but it's like www.twitter.com.
Yeah, it's still twitter.com. Yeah. So you will be tweeting from the Real Scientist Nano Twitter account. If you're interested, we are also on Mastodon. We are also on Blue Sky, which is yet another thing. But what can all these followers expect in the week that you are taking over the account? Go.
So one thing I'll definitely tweet about is, so we're actually organizing a conference on quantum magnetic materials exactly during that week. So there's going to be a lot of tweeting about, magnetic materials on nanoscale. I will also tweet a bit about teaching because I will be, let's say, commuting for first part of the conference because I have my teaching course. So in the Netherlands, they care about your teaching quite a lot. So we have a course to make us better lecturers. So I'll tweet a bit about teaching because I will actually be doing a class in that, and of course about all the different science we do, and I'll try to include a bit of like things I've done to get to this position, but also some of the responsibilities I have. So things like it actually takes me 8 hours to prepare a lecture when I'm teaching for the first time because you got to make it look nice, make it right pace for students and things like that. Anything interesting that pops up that week.
And the KISS project.
And of course, the KISS method, that one will definitely be included. Maybe not on Monday when we kick off, but during the week for sure. Because that's really a thing I quite enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to tweeting about it.
That's excellent. So there's going to be from your workshop, from the other workshop, you being on the road, and in between also about your research, including the KISS project. And lots more. Okay, excellent. That is awesome. And I just checked, and you are absolutely right. In 2020, you took over the account in week 42, and this year also you're taking over the account in week 42. So
42 is the answer to everything. So
exactly. 42 is the answer to everything. So this is perfect. This is so cool. Well, thank you very much, Antonija, for your time. So much fun speaking with you yet again, and cannot wait to follow your tweets on Real Scientist Nano. This has been wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, and looking forward.
Yeah, looking forward as well. And also to chatting to everyone who does respond to tweets.
Everyone, go respond to tweets. All right. Thank you, Antonija.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to yet another episode of Under the Microscope. If you like this particular episode that you just listened to, feel free to check out our other more than 200 episodes with amazing scientists from all around the world, materials and nanoscientists, and do let us know what kind of science, what kind of material science you would like to hear more about, and we will try to get you a guest accordingly. Thank you for listening yet again. Really appreciate your support. And hey, do consider joining our mailing list. The details are in the episode description. Thank you. See you in the next episode. Bye.